All right, so let me just preface my criticism of this movie by saying I don't believe in praising a movie based on reputation alone. That is, who's who's making it or who's made it. So oftentimes when someone like Scorsese or Spielberg or Tarantino, they release a new movie, automatically the critics are like, "Oh, it's a masterpiece," right?
The oil-rich Osage Nation is rocked by a series of murders, with investigators taking a hard look at the local white population in Killers of the Flower Moon, based upon the nonfiction book by author David Grann.
And I agree that Scorsese is a great movie maker. One of the
All time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many American auteurs are left these days, but he's definitely up there. And I do like some of his older movies. But this movie
Love.
just
You love
from
some
the
of his older movies.
from the very beginning, this movie just I felt was off. And I did read the nonfiction book it was based on because I
Oh,
happen to like that author. But let me just I have so many criticisms and we'll talk about them. So let me just rattle off some of these here and then we can go more in depth. But
have you said
uh
the title yet?
oh well they'll know from the
Okay.
intro.
All right.
So first of all, it's just way too long. It takes too long to really get started. I mean, the first murder or death doesn't happen until 40 minutes in.
Really?
DiCaprio is way too old for the role that he's playing. The music, I don't for me, the music was just wrong, and we can talk more about that. The script was very on the nose, like in the beginning when Leonardo DiCaprio is speaking with his uncle, played by Robert De Niro. It's just filled with so much exposition that was kind of clunky to me. The acting overall is good, but some of the supporting characters I felt were a little weak in that department, the acting department. And then I know that you have similar thoughts on this, so we can go into that. But Lily Gladstone, I thought that she was good in the movie, but I didn't understand why she wasn't the main character of the movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she was the female lead, right? But why wasn't she the main character? And then the movie cost $200 million, and I don't understand why that movie costs that much money, other than the above the line talent taking a lot of money. And then finally, why wasn't the movie built like a true mystery kind of those true crime books? I read a lot of them and they're always built as mysteries, so they start with some kind of murder or some kind of crime happening. And this movie didn't take that approach, and they turned DiCaprio's character, was kind of a supporting player in this narrative. They
Mm-hmm.
turned him into the main character, and obviously he's the big movie star, and I understand that, but I just felt it was the wrong move for this particular story. So, John, what did you think?
Well, I don't think. I thought Lily Gladstone was great. Was fantastic. Um, I truly believe she was the character of Molly Burkhart.
Hmm.
I thought Leonardo DiCaprio again was fantastic. Robert De Niro is fantastic. I thought all the acting was great. Um, there are a few American auteurs that can still shoot big crowd scenes with like one take. Scorsese's like it's the camera movements, the background characters, our watching our character move through a crowd, uh, amazing. Um, but but I agree. I thought that Lily Gladstone's character, Molly Burkhart, she should have been our POV character for at least 80% of the movie.
Mhm.
And um well, it's hard to talk about the movie and the characters without getting into spoiler
Yeah.
territory. So I won't yet.
Well yeah.
Um but there are some revelations, some big revelations about um Lily Gladstone's character, Molly. Her two of her sisters get murdered, right? I think it's two,
At least.
at least, and maybe even her mother. We're not really sure. Maybe the mother is just dying of old age. But there's a there should have been a scene where Lily Gladstone has this revelation um, about her own husband, and it doesn't really happen, or it's off screen. Um, and that would have been an incredible journey for a character, who loves this
Mhm.
man, and her family's having these terrible tragedies, and clearly there's two of her sisters have been murdered or more, and her friends and neighbors are getting murdered, and she goes to Washington D.C. to try to get help, which eventually does come in the form of Jesse Plemons, FBI agent or precursor to the FBI. But yeah, the script,
So I mean
I have some issues with the script
yeah.
as well.
I mean, the book so like I was saying, the book is unfolds in true crime fashion, and you
Hmm.
are kind of experiencing the story through the eyes of the investigators, who kind of take a back seat in the movie. Um, but that's how you tell a murder mystery generally, right? So it was surprising that in this day and age when everyone's so concerned about representation and authentic point of views and whatnot, that they didn't make her character, Lily Gladstone's character, the main character, the true main character.
Right.
But then on the other hand, let's honestly, this movie wouldn't have been made, at least not by someone like Scorsese, without, the inclusion of big movie stars. And if you have Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie, you can't make him just the husband, right? Um,
Right. But I
although
think, hmm,
you mentioned that originally it was going to be more of what I was talking about, and he was going to play the investigator, not the husband.
yes, in the original script, Leonardo DiCaprio is playing the FBI agent who gets
Mhm.
sent by J. Edgar Hoover to um, the Osage County to find out what's going on, and they know there at least have been about 30 murders of
Mhm.
Of Osage people, just because of the oil and the money. And for whatever reason, they didn't do that script. They rewrote it, or I don't know if they had a different writer write a new script where they had, like, I think Leonardo DiCaprio wanted to play that character of the husband who is the villain or one of the villains. But
Well,
honestly, he's kind of the main villain of the movie.
before we talk about that,
Yep.
I wanted to ask you and move into spoiler talk, but I wanted to ask you, since you didn't read the book, right? Um, how much of the movie was a true mystery to you, as opposed to how much did you just kind of suss out right away? Was any of it really revelatory to you, like, oh, it was that person, or did you know right away who the bad guys were?
I well from seeing the preview and
You got
hearing a
yeah.
bit about the movie, I basically
Mhm.
knew that anyone that was white was
Okay.
probably going to be a villain.
Right.
And okay, let's just get into spoiler territory.
Wait, well, wait. Before
Okay,
we
not
do
yet.
that,
All right, all right.
would you recommend this movie? See it or skip it?
I would see it, and I would
Okay.
see it because the acting is great. Um, it's Martin Scorsese, and I was if Martin Scorsese makes a $5 million movie, I'll watch it. If he makes a $200 million movie, I'll watch it. So I would say watch it, but
Okay.
I do have
So I
problems
would
with it.
say I would say skip it. And
Skipping
I
town.
agree with you though that, if he makes a movie, generally I'd be interested in to see it.
Mhm.
And
And you
not,
did see it.
you know,
You did see it.
yeah, and not many, not I don't think very many people went to see The Silence, which he considers his, the movie that he had tried to make for decades.
Oh
It's
wow.
his what would you call it?
His
His
what?
personal opus or whatever.
Okay.
And I thought that movie was very interesting and I would recommend that movie. But so I would say just like you, yeah, if he makes a movie, I'm curious to see it, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to like it. Like you still
Right.
have to deliver a good movie to me.
Yes.
I'm not just going to give you, an A plus because of your reputation. Anyway, so I'm skip it. So
All
let's
right.
go into spoilers. And we're talking about really the plot and the way they handled, the mystery of it. So yeah, I felt like if you haven't read the book, but you saw the trailer, then you pretty much knew who's good and who's bad, right? I felt like it was clear that De Niro was the bad guy from the very beginning.
Yes.
So,
Even with all his lip service about how he loves the Osage people and he speaks their language,
hmm
it's just a craven money grab, a
right.
psychotic money grab, not craven, because he orchestrates the murders of I don't know a dozen people. I don't think
hmm
he's has his hand in killing everyone, but um, yeah, it's crazy. But
But for him, they really just, so this movie's over 3 hours, right?
yes,
And for De Niro, they really just scratch the surface on his character because it's like, why is he such a bad person and why does he exploit them at the same time befriending them? And there's to me he was just the bad guy. There's no attempt for us to understand why, what his true motivations were, or how he got to that point. Um, so so it's almost like to me a mismanagement of the running time when it's so long and yet you're kind of left wanting more in certain
I guess
areas.
it's true. That's that's fair criticism because I mean clearly his character is a white supremacist who doesn't really see the Osage people as people. But at the same time, he's taken the time to learn their language, their customs, um, and his in his way, he does like the Osage people. Just like Leonardo
Mhm,
DiCaprio, in his way, he loves his wife. He loves the Lily Gladstone's Molly, but he's also poisoning her for a good part of the movie. And
mhm,
he doesn't kill her sisters himself, but he orders their murders, or he knows they're going to be murdered. And for me, if I was going to sit down and write the script, and I was going to write this script where Leonardo DiCaprio's what's his character's name? I can't
I
remember.
have it here.
Um,
Uh, it is
oh yeah,
Ernest Burkhart.
Ernest Burkhart. So if Ernest Burkhart is going to be my main character, He's returning hero. He fought in World War I in France. Comes back to live with his uncle, and he falls in love with this Osage woman who happens to also be very rich. And we see them fall in love, and he does love her. And then we kind of cut from their initial chemistry to him robbing some people at gunpoint. And I remember being jarred by that. I was like, oh, because he's a cab driver and he seems kind of simple. And so I
Mm,
just thought, okay, well, I know who this guy is. He's a cab driver. He's going to fall in love with a very wealthy woman. And he does love her. And then his uncle is going to be like, okay, it's good that you've married her. Now you're part of the family. So if she dies, you get all of her oil. You get her portion of the oil. And and
does
what
he?
I thought
Does
was going to happen was that
yeah.
the uncle's character was going to make Ernest be part of the murders. And then in a moment of weakness, he says, okay. And although he's not pulling the trigger, he knows that his wife's sister is about to get murdered, and he doesn't stop it. And then the uncle would be like, okay, now you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Now I control you, and I want you to start poisoning your wife. And he would
Mm,
struggle with it, but he would have to because he doesn't want to go to jail. But they didn't do that. Instead, yeah, there's a paddling scene where like they paddle
mm-hmm.
of Ernest, his own brother and uncle paddle him for just doing kind of some he gets a friend to steal his car so he can get the insurance money. But the friend gets caught and goes to jail. And it's not about, oh, you won't let us kill your wife's sister or mother, so we're gonna, hurt you. That never happens. That scene doesn't happen. He just goes along with it. And so from, yeah, like, I don't know, minute 40 or minute 60, we're with this character who appears to love his wife, but it's not unconditional love.
Yeah, I have to. I'm left asking, did he really love her? Did he really love both in the movie and in real life? Right? Because obviously this guy existed and he did
Yep.
this. Did he really love her and was just manipulated by his uncle? Because the way he comes across to me in the end is like you're saying, he's kind of a simpleton, but he's also just a low life, right?
Yes.
From the beginning, I'd say he's a low life. And
But it's more than a low
I
life.
guess he
You know, he
he seems a right. He seems a little conflicted in poisoning her, but at the end, right, he can't admit it,
right.
right? He's so I feel like in the end he is just a low life, and I guess that does fit with Scorsese's usual telling of tales, right? Where he's had a lot of movies where the protagonists are crooks of some kind, and they don't necessarily go through some transformation or you know express remorse, right? It's just kind of like these characters are who they are. They're not good people. I'm just showing them to you, that kind
Yeah,
of
even
thing.
in Goodfellas, that's true. I mean, really,
Hmm.
his character, he definitely goes through a bunch of stuff, and then he testifies against all of the other mob characters. But at the end, he's in witness protection, and he's not happy because he's not a gangster anymore. And
Even Raging Bull.
Yep.
Even he's kind of just like a dirt bag, really. Good boxer, but kind of a dirt bag in the end. He's just, he's alone.
Yep.
Um, but he hasn't necessarily learned anything or changed. It's just who he is. So I guess that it's kind of in line with what he normally does. Um, but I was just kind of, and yeah, DiCaprio was, I'd say DiCaprio's generally good, right, in movies. He's a good actor in
Yeah.
general, but like he's playing this doughboy who comes back from the war. So I'd say he's supposed to be like in his early 20s or something. Maybe if we were really pushing it, he'd be like 30, but instead DiCaprio's like what, 50 in real
Oh,
life?
probably close.
So
Late 40s,
that
mid
kind
50s.
of threw me because even I noticed even in the movie people were calling him boy and son and
Oh, although I kind of
it
it made sense to me because he was so easily swayed.
okay.
Um,
It made me think of that comedy Kingpin where Randy Quaid plays the Amish
oh,
bowler, and he's
he's
supposed to be like
like
this
20.
20
Yeah,
something, naive kid, and so everyone calls him the kid and
right.
stuff, right? But he's like 50 years old in that movie.
Okay.
uh,
I think
uh,
the plot has more, or the story or the script has more problems than,
mhm,
yeah, I guess I read that Robert De Niro's character, and Robert De Niro's in his 70s at least, um, was supposed to be 40 at the time of these
mm,
murders. But I don't care. They're great actors,
mhm,
and you're a director, and you start using the same actors because you trust them. They're gonna you trust them to do a good job, to show up and know the lines and be able to hit the marks. And so I don't have a problem with the ages. My problem
mhm,
was with the script. With it, it really should have been Lily Gladstone should have been the main character for like 80% of the movie, and she falls in love with this nice kind of simple guy, meat and potatoes guy, white guy, and they have kids. He loves the kids. He definitely loves his children, and he loves her. And then one of her sisters gets murdered, and he's with her every step of the way. And then another sister gets murdered. He's with her every step of the way, and then her mom dies, and then we find out, as she finds out, that the reason why all of her family members are dead and that she's near death
mhm,
is because of her husband. That would have been an
mhm,
incredible sequence. That would have been an incredible
mhm.
movie to watch.
And that movie only needed to be 2 hours.
Yes.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
like if you're gonna make this 3+ hour movie, why not just make it a mini series, right? And flesh it out some more. I mean,
Or you go the other
um,
route. You go the talented Mr. Ripley route, where Leonardo DiCaprio's Ernest, he's our main character, and from right off the bat, we're like, oh my God, this guy has no soul. He's willing to do anything
mm,
for money. And he's just as craven as his uncle, if not worse, because the uncle's not married to an Osage woman and poisoning her. Like they could have done
mm.
that route. Or you do the original script
Yeah,
where,
I think,
he's the FBI agent and he comes into the town to
mm,
solve the murders.
I think that one of the reasons they probably didn't do that is criticism they would have received over, because this was really a story about the
Right, you
Osage,
have the
right?
white savior that comes into town and saves the
Hmm.
day. Although that did
So they're
happen,
kind of trying,
right? Oh, you read the book.
yeah, they're trying to thread the needle here, right? With the politics, the modern day politics and representation, I feel. So I suppose any route they would have taken would have been criticized unless like we were saying, the Osage really were the
Right,
main
if Molly was
characters.
our POV character for 80%
Mhm.
of the movie.
But then no one, this would have been like a small independent movie probably that
Maybe, I
just
mean,
to be made.
if you still have Martin Scorsese and you still have Leonardo DiCaprio and you still have, yeah, maybe what was it? Was it a Netflix movie or was it an Apple movie? Apple.
Apple.
Maybe Apple would only give you $60 million.
Well, so let's end because I'm curious to hear your thoughts with why this movie cost 200 million. Because
Did it really cost 200 million?
if
Did you
you
look that
let's
up? That's what they
that's what
say.
they
Oh, okay.
say. And let's say you
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio gets
you took
20.
all the A-listers, right? But let's say you took all the A-listers
Oh,
out,
okay.
right? And Scorsese out. Like you could probably,
Then it's a $50 million
having
dollar movie.
traveled a lot of the
Yeah.
country, well,
40.
having, yeah, traveled a lot of the country. Like if you shoot your movie in Oklahoma, or if you want to, I don't even know where they shot it, in Canada or whatever, you don't need a ton of money. You'd have to do some visual effects, but you wouldn't need a ton of money to replicate that time period in a rural area. So, like you're saying, DiCaprio gets 20 and De Niro gets 10 or something. Scorsese gets 10. Maybe
Scorsese might get
the
20.
rights cost 10. If there is a bidding war, so all of that, it's like 100 million already, you know. But where's the rest of that money? Like, I don't. Even then, I don't think this movie needed to be 100 million,
No.
like you just said.
Yeah, I mean, well,
You know,
the
50 million or
the
something.
costumes and the sets, they're expensive to build.
Mm.
You know, but uh,
It's just kind of crazy. And that, did you watch the
I
Oscars?
did not watch the Oscars, but I read about them.
Okay. The winner of great. Now it's either the winner of the one of the screenplay awards. He won for great. Now I'm completely blanking. Anyway, one of the winners, in his speech, he said, instead of making a $200 million movie, can't we make a lot more movies for less
Oh,
money? Right? Does everything
right.
have to cost $200 million? All these big budget
Hmm.
tentpole movies. And I feel I'm like right there. I'd rather have more movies, more variety, more filmmakers, more up and coming talent than just having, 5 movies a year that cost so much money, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
As made by
And
Hollywood,
it's though those movies do happen, those $5 to $15 million movies, and they're usually, they're comedies. They're genre movies, they're horror movies, they're science fiction movies, they're smaller movies. Um, and yeah, if you have a hit that's a $15 million movie and it makes $100 million over 2 weekends, then that's amazing. And if you have a $200 million movie that makes $100 million over 2 weekends, then you're in some trouble. Although not if you're Apple, I guess, because they make phones. um, that
all right.
was
That was
Killers of the
Killers
Flower
of the
Moon.
Flower Moon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.